You understand now the basic sense of maintaining reserves. As of now in India, the bankers across the country are mandated to maintain two different kinds of reserve ratios. Two different kinds of reserve ratios. The first is CRR, stands for cash reserve ratio. This is the first reserve requirement the banker has to make. How do you define cash reserve ratio? Cash reserve ratio refers to, simply could be defined as the percentage of net demand and time liabilities. Net demand and time liabilities. Net demand and time liabilities that the banks has to maintain. That banks has to maintain with RBI, and make a note, no interest rate, okay, or no interest is paid on such reserves maintained. RBI doesn't pay any interest on the reserves maintained. So this is what is said to be called as cash reserve ratio, the percentage of net demand and time liabilities, NDTL, what we call as net demand and time liabilities, that the banks has to maintain with RBI, on which no interest is earned by the bankers. Ready, my friends? Now let me try to simplify the definition of CRR. So many of you might be confused as what is this new word called net demand and time liabilities. But keep in mind, my friends, every organization or any such business enterprise has assets and liabilities. And since here in this case the banker is also someone who is doing a business of raising money, lending money, he would also be having an assets and liabilities. For a banker, what contributes or what would be the assets of a bank and what would be the liability of a bank? What is a liability for a bank? Deposits he accepts. Why is deposit a liability to the bank? I hope you understand the basic difference between an asset and a liability, isn't it? So liability is something that you ought to repay, isn't it? Asset is something you are going to own. You own. So when it comes to liability, okay, deposit is a liability because once I accept a demand deposit or a term deposit, I make a promise to the deposit holder. You can withdraw all your money or some proportion of money, but at any point of time I make a promise that I will be paying you the principal that you have deposited along with the interest rate I have promised. Since this is a promise that I have made in return to my customer, it is a liability. At any point of time I have repay back to the customers, isn't it? So simply I can say one way as banker is someone who is borrowing money from the people, and that is what he is calling as deposits, isn't it? Don't you think so? Banker is borrowing money from the people. Okay, what is banker saying? You give me money, I'll pay you 6.25%. What does it mean? You lend me money, I'll pay you 6.25%. And the same money he is offering to these people. You want money? Give me 15%. Okay, so I am borrowing money and in return I am lending money. I am raising money and I am lending the same money, in which I am making certain amount of profits. So what is my liability is the money that I accept as deposits as something I ought to repay to my deposit holders. And what would be my assets of the bank? Is loans that extend to my borrowers, isn't it? So the loan extended to Vijay Mallya is my asset. The money I accepted from all of you people as deposits is my liability. Get it, friends? And if this asset doesn't perform, I mean when Vijay Mallya has left to London, okay, I say that is a bad asset, which I generally call as non-performing asset. Bad loan. Okay, the reason is he has to pay some 4 years back, but as of now he is traced nowhere in India, so hence why I call it a bad asset, non-performing asset. But more or less it is an asset. The loan I extended is an asset, because when I extend a loan, what I am expecting, not only the money I lent, the interest that he is also going to pay. So this is my asset and this is a liability. Okay, now you know what is the meaning of a liability of a bank, and you can easily make it out. Liability, replace liability with deposits, and now it is nothing but demand and time deposits. What does it mean? Demand or term deposits, or term deposits also called as fixed deposits. So demand deposits are of two kinds, either demand deposit or term deposit. So I can simply write net demand and time liabilities as simply total deposits. That is what it is. Deposit is a liability, and what are the total deposits? Either of the two kinds, demand or term. That's what I mean to say. Simply net demand and time liabilities is an alternative term used to replace total deposits. So now what does this particular definition say? The percentage of money the bank has to keep with RBI or has to park with RBI out of certain proportion of total deposits it accepts. Now let's say if CRR happens to be, let's say if it is 4%. I don't mean it is exactly 4%, just imagine if it happens to be 4%. what does the RBI says is, every time you accept 100 rupees as deposit, I don't mind whether it's a demand or term deposit, every time you accept rupees 100 as deposit, 4, since CRI is 4%, rupees 4 has to be parked with RBI, okay, for which I would not be paying any interest. So ensure that you would be maintaining 4 rupees of liquid cash, simply currency, so that you would not be making business with that 4 rupees. Now you might be thinking, why should RBI force the banker to maintain 4 rupees? Okay, and what purpose maintaining 4 rupees with RBI serves? That is something we will be discussing. But you understand what is CRR? It is a percentage of total deposits that the bank has to park with RBI, on which you earn no interest. Okay, now let's try to understand why. Why does RBI forces bankers to keep or set aside certain proportion of money, and how does it serve the purpose for the entire economy? The first thing, my dear friends, the very first requirement is that I have given you. Agar if a deposit holder walks into my bank and requires a certain amount of withdrawal, how could I meet his requirement? Iske liye I always has to maintain certain amount of liquid cash, isn't it? So in order to ensure there has to be some amount of money, liquid cash maintained with these bankers, the RBI forces them to maintain it. Then why in such case RBI account it has to be maintained? Only when it is maintained with RBI, the RBI could get to know whether the bankers are really maintaining the desired reserve ratio these people are forced to do. It doesn't really mean when RBI says 4 out of 100 has to be kept with me, it doesn't mean every evening out of total deposit the bank manager would be taking 4% and goes to RBI just in Mumbai and deposits there. No, he has to maintain, every banker as such would be having an account of RBI. So jo bhi money I raise from the deposit, I accept from the deposits, I keep aside certain proportion of money is liquid cash in the name of RBI, so that it would help me to meet my day-to-day requirements of meeting such kind of cash withdrawals, so that I don't need to run, isn't it? Simply tomorrow when this person asks me, sir, where is my 100 rupees? I cannot say you wait for 10 days so that I would go to Vijay Mallya, collect some amount of money and I will give it to him. This is not something that is bound to happen. Since I accepted a demand deposit, I have to meet my obligation. So in order to meet such requirements, I am forced to maintain certain proportion of money. That is the purpose of CRR. But many a times it so happens, my friends, of course there was debate some 3-4 years back, when there is a person called Pradeep Chaudhary who used to head State Bank of India. This man used to fight with RBI saying, hey, look, we are keeping 4 or 5 or 6, whatever you determine, with you, on which we don't take any interest. So he suggested, why not pay interest rate on it, because that money in your deposit could also be used by you. Since you have the flexibility to use the money, okay, it is nothing but you borrowing from our banks, so why not pay interest? The argument is simple, my friend. Simply, my friend, this is a age of digital age. In good old days, people used to carry cash for every transaction. But these days, let's say you are running a bank in Banjara Hills, or simply you are running a bank in the most posh area, something like Madhapur. Okay, so here in Madhapur, 90% of the people are highly educated people, and rarely people use cash for making their transactions. But if the same bank has been set up in rural part of India, this is a place where, because the economy, rural economy is highly cash intensive economy, that is where bankers really require more cash to meet the obligations of the customers. But if you look at a bank in Madhapur or in simply this particular posh locality of Hyderabad, hardly people walk into the bank to withdraw currency. So in such case, now if I have been forced by RBI that I don't mind whether you are having a branch in Andheri, okay, or in the posh area of Bandra, or in Jubilee Hills or Banjara Hills, you keep 5 rupees always aside. In such case, my 5 rupees would not be making any business for me, because I am keeping 5 rupees aside, but I don't get a customer who want this 5 rupees. Isn't it? Because most of my customers are well read and they are habituated to using digital cash, simply plastic currency. They don't walk into my bank. But whereas if I am a banker in rural part of India, this is a cash intensive economy, henceforth I am obliged to maintain it. But here in this case, you are forcing us unnecessarily to maintain cash, which is not serving any purpose, because my customers doesn't come to my bank. You might not be observing these days, my friends. In good old days, if it is Saturday afternoon, there used to be too many people rushing to bank to withdraw money, because Sunday is closed and every transaction I have to meet using cash. But that's not the case now. So now when you are forcing me, how much money I have to keep aside out of the total deposits I raise, if it is not serving any purpose, either you pay interest or leave the job to me how much maintained money I should keep aside. But you don't dictate it. Okay, so that used to be the debate, that used to be the fight happened once before this lady Arundhati Bhattacharya used to be the, before that lady Mr. Pradeep Chaudhary used to the one head SBI, but later point of time somehow the debate has been resolved and no longer no banker as of now dictates it. But the purpose of CRR is to ensure certain amount of liquid cash would be available with the bankers in order to meet their basic day-to-day requirements. But keep in mind, friends, other than this basic requirement of meeting the customers' requirements, CRR plays a very big role. What is that big role? Is cash reserve ratio in the economy determines the total money supply in the economy. The reason because it determines to what extent money gets multiplied. Okay, so keep it in mind, friends, once money introduced in the system, it doesn't remain the amount that it has been introduced. It keeps getting multiplied. The rate at which money gets multiplied and what would be the total money supply at the end of the day is basically determined by CRR. Now you might be thinking, how could money gets multiplied? I had 1000 rupees in my pocket, but never ever this got multiplied 2000 in my entire life. Okay, that would not get multiplied only if you keep it in pocket. Only when you invest it, it gets multiplied. Only when you spend it, it gets multiplied in the entire economy. If you keep it in your pocket, it would not get multiplied. Money, to what extent money gets multiplied? That is determined by the reserve ratio. What would be the total money supply of the money introduced within the system is determined by reserve ratio. So reserve ratio in fact is a very powerful tool that influences the total money supply in the system. I'll just give you one numerical example so that you could appreciate how powerful and how worthy is reserve ratio. Now let's imagine, my friends, just imagine in this example, none of us in this country, none of you have any currency with you. And Mr. Urjit Patel, the Reserve Bank of India governor, has printed some 10 100 rupee notes worth 1000. So this is what the RBI governor has printed, and let's say he happened to my childhood friend. Of course, I'm not as old as Urjit Patel. Okay, but just imagine he has gifted to Shiva. Okay, so now in this country, my friend, the only person who has cash or who has money, physical form of money, is only Mr. Shiva, that is myself. Even governor doesn't have it. He has given all the money he printed to me. So in this country, the only money or the amount of money that is in circulation is only 1000 rupees. None of you have any money, and I have 10 100 rupee notes, okay, Kadak notes, fresh notes in my pocket, and no extra money. Now just imagine if I happen, because since I only have money, I'm afraid that you might be stealing it. So what did I do is I approached my banker. And I have deposited my 1000 rupees money. I have deposited my 1000 rupees money. In return, what did my banker has given me? Checkbook on a debit card. In return, the banker has given me checkbook or debit card, wherein I can issue a check against this bank up to 1000 rupees, or you can use the debit card to make transaction up to 1000 rupees. Physically, I don't have cash in my pocket. I have given to the bank. But still, do you think I can claim that I have 1000 rupees with me? Isn't it? See, in your pocket you have, in your wallet you have an ATM card. Okay, do you think that money, that ATM card that you have is equally worth having money? Because that is a card that you can use at any point of time. You have a checkbook with you and you have money in your bank. Though you don't have physically cash with you, you can still claim, I have some 1000 rupees with me. Papa has given me 10,000 rupees to me. Isn't it? So here in this case, physically I have given the money to the banker and he has accepted the money. In return, he gave me a checkbook or a debit card, wherein I can withdraw certain amount of money, okay, in proportion, okay, out of the money deposited. You got me, friends? So now you can still claim that I have 1000 rupees with me. Of course, I don't have the physical cash, but I can still claim I have 1000 rupees with me. Now imagine in this example, the reserve ratio is 10%. Just to make my calculation simple, I made it to 10%. Now once the banks accept this money as deposit, there is no point in keeping the money as it is or in a locker. So what does the banker does? Since it is mandated to maintain reserve requirement of 10%, so it keeps aside 100 rupees with it as a reserve, because it is anticipating this fellow Shiva might walk into the bank at any point of time, might be withdrawing some money, so let me keep some cash with me. So 100 rupees it has kept with itself. Rupees 900 has been lent to this man with yellow t-shirt. What's your name? Vamsi. So 900 rupees is what Vamsi has borrowed. Now Vamsi borrowed 900 rupees, and Vamsi, since he also borrowed 909 Kadak notes, he is also worried about his friends would be stealing money. So what did Vamsi does? He has gone to his bank. My bank is HDFC, Vamsi bank is ICICI. So he has been to his bank and has deposited his 900 rupees. In return, what did Vamsi got? A debit card or a checkbook for which he can make a transaction worth 900. Though Vamsi doesn't have any money in his pocket, but he has a debit card or he has a checkbook wherein he can make transaction worth of 900. You get it, my friends? Following? So 900 rupees has been accepted in this bank and it becomes a liability, and out of 900 maintains 90 as reserves. 810 is the money that the banks would be able to lend. Now imagine this 810 has been borrowed by you. What's your name? Ranjit. Okay, it's Ranjit who borrowed this 810 and he deposited this 810 in B3. So now 81 is the money kept aside, 729 is the money that, okay, so 810 is the money that Ranjit said to have. And now what's your name? Prasad. And Prasad who borrowed 729 and he has done the same thing. This happens up to infinity. Isn't it? Practically, the money printed and circulated is 1000 rupees, which is generally called as reserve currency. Reserve currency or hard currency, or simply called as M0 or high powered money. High powered money. So the money printed and circulated and gifted to Mr. Shiva is only 1000 rupees, which is said to be called as reserve currency, or which is also called as M0, which is also called as high powered money. But practically seems to happen is, I can say I have 1000 rupees with me, Vamsi can say he has 900 rupees with him, Ranjit can say 810 rupees with him, and Prasad can say he has 729, and someone else can say 729 into 0.9, 729 into 0.9 square. So that's keep on happening up to infinity. Now if you look at the original high powered money is 100,000 rupees, but what seems to be the total money supply within the economy seems to be 1000. Total money supply seems to be 1000 plus 900 plus 810 plus 729, so on up to infinity. Now tell me, my friends, how much would be the end value? That's simple mathematics. Calculate it and let me know how much would be the total value of money. You have 2 minutes. It's very easy, my friends. Make it fast. Many of you are engineers. I am asking you to simply make a very small calculation. Okay, what is the total money? Okay, what is the reserve cash or high powered money? 1000. This is what I am calling as M0. What is the total money supply? 1000, 900, 810, 729, infinity. My simple question is, what would be the total value? 10,000. Very good. Fantastic. It's simply 10,000. How is it so? Simply, my friends, is it increasing series or decreasing? Decreasing. So when it's decreasing, it's a very mere common sense that it would have a limit. Isn't many of your engineers, isn't it? Is it an arithmetic series or a geometric or harmonic series? Or I mean to say, you remember in good old days, A plus D, A plus 2D, A plus 3D, A plus n minus 1D, that is arithmetic. AR power 0 plus AR power 1 plus AR square, AR power n minus 1, AR power infinity, that is geometric. A by R power 0, A by R power 1, that is harmonic. Now tell me, how could I express this particular series? Arithmetic, geometric or harmonic? I can express this as an arithmetic series. Let's say, geometric. Let's say 1000 as A. 1000 is A. Then what is R power 0? It is simply 1 minus RR. What is RR? Reserve ratio. What is reserve ratio here in our example? 10%. What is 1 minus 10%? 1 by 1 by 10. What is 1 minus 1 by 10? It is 9 by 10. It is nothing but point, isn't it? So here in our example, R power 0 is 1 minus RR. So multiply it, R power 0 is 1. Okay. And 1 minus RR, how much it is at the end of the day? Minus 0.9. So 1000 into 0.9 plus 1000 into 0.9 square, 1000 into 0.9 cube. In fact, to be frank with you, in the previous example, I didn't do any math of subtracting. Instead of subtracting 81 from 810, okay, I simply has multiplied it by 0.9. That's it. Since I was no longer able to multiply further with 0.9, that's the reason I have stayed at 729. You get me, my friends? Now simply you know it's a geometric series, infinite series, and I want the formula for sum of infinite terms. It's a by 1 minus r. What is a here? 1000. What is r here? 1 minus rr. So then I can write it as a, which is nothing but 1000. 1 minus rr is rr. So I can rewrite it as a multiplied by 1 by rr. What is a? M0, the high poured money at the reserve currency printed, into 1 by rr, which gives me total money supply. So the number of times M0 gets multiplied is determined by 1 by rr. So money multiplier is simply 1 by rr. The total money supply is M0 multiplied by 1 by rr. So here in this example, what is A? 1000. What is rr? 10%. 1 by 10% is 1000 into 1 by 10. It is 10 into 1k. It is 10,000. That's it. So at the end of the day, the total money supply, who determines it? RR. If RR happens to be 20%, what would be my total money supply? 1000 into 1 by 20%. Would it increase or decrease? Decrease or increase? My dear friends, keep it in mind. If RR increases, what happens to total money supply? Does it increase or decrease? Decrease, because total money supply and RR are inversely proportional. Lesser is the RR, more is the money supply. Lesser is the RR, more is the money supply. More is the RR, lesser is the money supply. If RR happens to be 20%, total money supply would have been 5,000. If it happens to be 5%, money supply would have been 20,000. 4%, 25,000. 3%, 33,333. 2%, 50,000. 1%, 100,000. 0%, infinity. M0 into infinity would become infinity. Then why not RR make 0? Why not make RR 0? Because in such case, 1000 rupees printed would get multiplied by 1 by 0, which is infinity. Then henceforth the government doesn't need to print any money. There would be infinite money supply. Then why not make RR 0? You remember, my friends, we all started this topic by saying every bank has to maintain certain proportion of reserves, isn't it? So that's the basic reason. You also need to write a condition provided RR not equals to 0. But one simple thing that you can derive from here, the lesser is the RR, more would be the money supply. More would be the money supply. The higher is the RR, the lesser would be the money supply. So simply by altering the reserve ratio within the economy, I could influence the money supply within the economy. You accept it? Okay. So now imagine, my dear friends, if the RBI happens to decrease cash reserve ratio, if the RBI happens to decrease the cash reserve ratio, is it part of A, expansionary policy or contractionary policy? A or B? If RR is decreased, I mean cash reserve ratio is decreased by RBI. Okay, RBI suggested bankers, you don't need to maintain 6%, I am reducing it to 5%. How does it has an influence on supply of money? A, would it increase? B, would it decrease? Yes, A, it's a part of expansionary policy. So fall in reduction in CRR is an expansionary policy, increase in CRR is a part of contractionary policy. Now you accept this is a tool or this is an instrument that can use it to influence the supply of money. Very good. Okay, and that's the main purpose. In fact, that is how RR helps in the amount of times the money gets multiplied or simply the total money supply at the end of the day. Now my question is, friends, I am saying at a reserve ratio of 10%, money introduced worth 1000 gets multiplied to 10,000 because the money gets multiplied by 1 by RR times. Now my simple question to you is, how much time it takes for this 1000 rupees introduced become 10,000 rupees within the economy? How much time it takes? 1 day, 2 days, 1 month, 10 months, lifespan, how much time it takes?